Welcome back to Virtual Shakeup 3.0. It's my pleasure to invite David Adler, the founder and chairman of BizBash, to join us today. And actually, I don't know if you saw my post on social media, but I have come prepared with my martini glass. No alcohol yet, because it's always when speaking to you, it's like I'm in a literary salon. It's so intellectual. Aww. I really love it. So with that said, David, you want to just do a little quick intro so the audience know? I mean, if they don't.
Sure. I am the chairman and founder of BizBash, as you had mentioned. It's a company I started now 21 years ago after I was head of corporate communications for two major companies. One was Primedia that owned 350 magazines and events and things like that, and another one called Macmillan, which we all are probably familiar with because we use the textbooks. And during that era, I worked for a Brit that is pretty much in the news by the name of Robert Maxwell, who seems to have news coming all the time, going on with lots of documentaries and podcasts and some family situation issues. And before that, I was 21. I was a startup guy. I started a society magazine in Washington, D.C. called Washington Dossier, which I have actually digitized, and it's all online from the 70s and 80s, and it's amazing to see at WashingtonDossier.com. And there's a through line because everything I've done has been about gathering people and how people perceive other people and how things happen when people gather. So it's, the reason I started BizBash was I was spending all this money on events at Primedia. We did the 35th anniversary of New York Magazine and the 50th anniversary of 17 Magazine and the Soap Opera Digest Awards and the New York Magazine Awards. And you basically were planning events by calling your friends and say, who did what? So I decided, well, why not we create this sort of this thing called the internet came up when I started. It was in 2000. And it was like the perfect way to create a database. So I went into an event and I said, who did what at an event? And then we decided if we do context around that and talk about how people gather, then it will resonate. And we kind of disintermediated the event organizer that just had a Rolodex. So now that everybody knew all of the different vendors, they were able to say, I want the best guy. You know, when you used to get a computer and you bought the computer, now you want to make sure you got the right chips and the right this and the right that. So it was kind of the beginning of that era. And events are like that. We want to know how you make this stuff and how it happens because it is an art.
Absolutely. Oops, sorry, I was on mute. Absolutely. And I love BizBash, but you sold that recently to Tarsus, correct?
Only 80% of only 20. I sold 80%, so I'm 20% there. I'm working more than ever, but I'm doing the stuff I love to do. And Matt Johnson, who is the president, is a fantastic partner, and he's taking the things that he's really great at, and I'm doing what I'm great at, and we're really taking this whole thing to the next level because this virtual era has changed our business like everybody else. So we're where people go to get sort of what's going on and where should we go. And the whole purpose of BizBash was to allow people to peek over the fence to see what other people are doing because you can't get into some other people's events. And it raises the bar. It's called competition. But if you don't know that they're even out there, you don't even know what to go for.
No, absolutely. I also think something about BizBash that I've always noticed is that it really, it just raised the level of creativity and just there was a lot of innovation going on. So I always looked at it as a place to go to get new ideas. So that's a
well, you know what it does though? It showcases your ideas. And so what we did is just create a forum for people to see what other people are doing. And the ideas are brilliant. And then we also tried to do it with the theory of events and the theory of gathering. And we talk about the neuroscience of gathering in place. Beyond all the pretty, it's really what's effective.
Well, let's jump into the neuroscience of events, because that was a fascinating topic that you talked about. And the thing that, you talked about smells, for example, like creating, so when you walk in, a smell could actually elicit behavior. You want to tell us more about this?
Well, yeah, first of all, let me say that I am an amateur person on this. So I'm not the expert. I'm more of the practitioner that says, oh my God, you said a really smart thing, and I want to use everything that you said. So I actually had a neuroscientist that I would call all the time to say, does this work? Does this not work? And I learned a lot. And what I found in talking to event organizers that the number one thing that you relate to when you enter a room is the smell. If you notice, you walk into a hotel in Las Vegas, what do you smell? Perfumes, perfumed entrances. And it has a stimulation into the brain that things like other things don't. And it's kind of the first thing that you do. So you have to make sure the smell is good. You know how much a bad smell can really screw you up too. And there's other things like, I didn't realize that the centerpiece on a table balances the neurons in the brain. So even they call it a centerpiece for a reason. It's a very big title for something when you think about it. And so all of those things are really important. And then there's concepts like oxytocin exchange. Traditionally people thought of it as what happens between moms and kids and babies, but it really happens in every room, everywhere you go. And it's all the nonverbal communications. It's the eyes flashing, it's the blinking, it's the hand gestures. It's all of these things that have more impact than you think, especially, which is why we think face-to-face is not going anywhere at this moment. And so those are the kinds of things that are important. We also now talk about the social physics of events, where things are, because it's not necessarily neuroscience, but the idea that you don't judge an event now by how many people attend, but how many conversations are curated. And the way you create conversations, decor in a room, for example, is beautiful and it's nice, but it's not there just to have it. It's there to democratize the room. So it puts everybody in the same state, which is a lot different than decorating your home. Decorating an event is to transport people so that they can then be open like a child to connect with other people and say, oh, wow, look at this. And I look over at you, Heather, and say, look how cool this is. And you see the twinkle in the eyes and things like that, that combine all the neuroscience and the design and the environment together. And it's so interesting. And what happens is through this, social physics and things, conversations happen. And I always believe that I actually stole this from Scott Heffernan, who started Meetup. He said the most powerful word in the English language is let's. Because whenever people gather, they say, let's go to lunch, let's go to dinner, let's hook up, let's start a revolution. And that is what you're trying to stimulate at events, because we don't know all the things that are happening when people connect, whether you're at a table at a wedding, whether you're at the climate conference, whether you're here today, you don't know what conversations are going to spark things that will change your life. What is falling in love? You never know how that works, right? All of a sudden, you could meet somebody at an event and your life completely changes. The serendipity effect fills in, the neuroscience or the tools of that. It's so interesting what we're doing. We're in the most interesting business in the world. And it's even more interesting now because we've lost it. So now we even appreciate it more.
No, I agree. And actually, I just, it's curating the serendipity effect is the role of the event organizer, right? It's
absolutely.
And it's this skill set. Like, I think there actually has to be new skill sets developed. So before it was operational ninja, now it's, you need to be a curator of serendipitous connections ninja.
Well, I have been for a long time, I've reestablished my complete mission in life. I believe all event organizers have to be what I call collaboration artists, not with the people just creating the event, but to create the people in the room and make them collaborate in ways that you never would have thought they would collaborate. For example, when people go to a traditional event and you see people on stage talking heads and you have 1,000 people in the audience, 9 times out of 10, the person that you're sitting next to, you'll never even talk to. And I'm like a guy, and I won't even have eye contact with the person next to me, right? So we need to have these collaboration artists, the speakers or the people running the event, say, okay, let's not activate just the speaking part, but let's activate the audience. So let's have everyone spend a few minutes talking to each other, like kind of we do in churches and synagogues all around the world. But you imagine if you can facilitate 1,000 people and you have them talk for a few minutes, you're facilitating thousands of conversations that can lead to a serendipity effect that you will have no control over because you're activating. What I've been trying to do, I've worked for like Hillary Clinton and other people, and I've been trying to suggest to them that the political event should not be a politician just going one way, but their job is to activate the people in the room to make connections that you would never, ever have had. And that is the biggest challenge we have today. Because I also believe that in today's world, millennials, we always beat up on them. We can take a break on that today, but we're all like that you need to give people permission to talk to each other today. And part of the curation process to be a collaboration artist is to give people space. And if you notice, now the hallway has become the most important thing. And even in virtual, it's these little tables that people create, or it's the serendipitous connections that we're trying to improve on virtual. So that's kind of the holy grail, is how do you, I believe that what you're doing at an event ultimately is, how do you scale intimacy? How do you make people feel like they're not in a group of 1,000, but they're in a one-on-one situation with whoever they're connecting with? So our goal is to scaling intimacy. I've been to some of these incredible, huge galas that are beautiful, but people don't even talk to each other because they're locked in their little cliques. And it takes a lot of courage to say, hello, my name is David Adler. And so you don't feel like an idiot. It's like breaking the ice. And it's all of these things that we need as event organizers, like you said, to be the collaboration artists.
No, absolutely. And it's funny. I was at an event, pre-COVID, and I said, this event's too big, actually, because I was just a little fish swimming around this big ocean, and I couldn't even figure out where to start to connect with people. And that's why you go to events, is the connections and the discussions. And I agree. Also, innovation, by the way, ideation happens in the hallways, right? When you least expect it. And so I think you're right, like getting these events back. Now, with my comment about the size, do you believe, because I think we agree that the new currency isn't about butts and seats, it's about collaboration, engagements, connections, discussions. Do you see these events changing in nature in terms of size, format, things like that?
I do, but I don't think it's necessarily the number of people coming, but it's how you treat them. Like in virtual world, when you break people up into small groups, you can do that with the technology now. And I believe that that's happening more and more. I wrote an article right in April last year called The Hub and Spoke Method. The hub and spoke method, and I just thought the beauty of COVID time, that with all its horribleness, it gives us time to sit back and think and not be driven by our phones and our Rolodexes and things like that. So it occurred to me that this hub and spoke method, which is not totally original, that you have an event in one place where the speakers are the main stage, and then you break it up into, instead of people individually at home, you go to hotel rooms and you break it up into groups of 10 or 20 so that you create the intimacy automatically, and you can still have thousands of people viewing it, but you still want the idea that there is something more than just sitting in your living room or in your home office to connect people. The other thing with the new technology that's happening is that you can diffuse an event and have the same trade show in 1,000 places using augmented reality and spatial computing. So you turn the hallway, in a sense, into a trade show booth, a trade show room, and you basically do it virtually, but you do it with other people. And then you go into the room and your headsets on. So there's all these new things that are happening that we haven't even seen the beginning of the beginning yet. We are now still in the brick phone era of gathering. Some of the things that have been done, from one of my friends told me the idea of sitting in a row looking at a stage is something from like thousands of years ago in many cases. And only recently have we gone to having round tables at events where people can actually talk to each other.
Yeah, no, this is actually interesting. We're Umbrella, right? Umbrella's, one of the core things Umbrella does is this one-to-one matchmaking with AI. Yep. But you actually could take that and expand that to matching people together in groups. We know because of data that you've given us, plus your behaviors, we're going to suggest this group. Like, you're helping people find the right people, which I think is super important on virtual, but could totally be transferable to live events.
Oh yeah. I've been. Someone said that being in COVID era and doing events is like flying, like building the plane while you're in the air, and we're all doing that. We're building the plane while we're in the air, and I think it's evolving. And I learned something every single day just talking to people. And the one thing that I learned yesterday by a friend of mine I had a conversation with, who was talking about how these whole virtual worlds, it may shift down the road to where instead of people paying to be on the virtual platforms, the virtual platforms are going to be paying you to have your community, because the data that you're going to be getting from the facial recognition pieces and the audio and all that is going to be so valuable from a predictive level of your community that it's going to become more valuable. Like everything that I'm saying, you're seeing my face, they're analyzing what I'm really thinking and what my behaviors will be. And we're giving them a live laboratory to take the data to a much higher level. The other thing I think is that the virtual platforms are not the virtual platforms. The virtual platforms are really the new event stack, that this is where you're going to run your live event from, as well as your virtual event. And you're also going to be doing something, I'm calling it the community continuum. So you're going to have this conversations on here. You're going to have the conversations in Clubhouse. That'll be the same people, because it seems like the communities stay the same, the platforms and the people move in. So giving access to these communities are going to become so much more valuable than just the technical things. It's very interesting.
Absolutely. And actually, here's Ralph, but I have another question, Ralph, before you jump in. Clubhouse, and we talked a lot about that, and you've been active on it. So can you tell us more about Clubhouse and how you see that also helping events and where you see it going?
I think that what Clubhouse has done is give us a new format. The format is it's conversations on demand. You know how you're anticipating going to a show, you want to talk about something, but then you get on Clubhouse and all of a sudden you say, here's a topic I want to talk about, and 50 people come and they say, oh, let's talk about that together now. I think that event organizers are going to have to understand that people want that. And whether it's useful or not, I mean, I think it's more niche-y in terms of Clubhouse. I don't think it's going to be the social side of Clubhouse that's going to be the big thing. I think it's going to be the B2B side that is going to have the real value, and the social side will probably be more of the entertainment side. But I do believe that people want to talk to each other. Also, what is interesting about Clubhouse, is that it's scaled down to the point of view where all it is your voice. You can sit in your underwear and you can have a conversation. You can completely be in your bed at 4 a.m. and then say, I'm gonna have a conversation. And I've had the most remarkable 4 a.m. conversations because I couldn't sleep, and I learned so much. And I think that that's what's coming, that people really value the ideas, and it's also tear down, and it's scaled intimacy. There's something about the voice that is more intimate than something about a text, right? You understand the body language. In fact, I've been doing focus groups for this consulting thing I'm doing, where you actually do these interviews and you analyze the body language more than what they're saying. And you find the truth in that, because you can tell. And then when we see all these new things that are happening with Activa, I think it's called, and different ones that measure what you're saying, you get the truth. And it's really, really interesting. I just think that it may not last as Clubhouse, but the idea of conversations where I talk about how you're a collaboration artist and you measure an event by how many conversations you're curating, we want that, and we want to get to the let's, because we want to do something with that conversation. We want to solve a problem with that conversation, which brings me to the last point that I just learned yesterday. From talking to my friends that run Daybreakers. Anyone know what Daybreakers is? Daybreakers is this, they decided, let's do morning discos and things like that. So they rent a club and people come at 7 a.m. and they have yoga and discos, and it's non-alcoholic, and it's become like a real thing. And so they've pivoted over to having thousands of people doing dance things together. But what they tripped on, I don't know if they tripped on it or they figured it out, is that they were able to create entire songs using the input of the people that are on the virtual event, and bring real musicians that were the collaboration artists that created songs that are unbelievable about that. So I believe that the next level of events totally is going to be about co-creation, and not going to an event just to go to an event, but to solve a problem. to write a song that's unbelievable because it's first-class talent, to solve the climate change problem because you're getting input. It's like a giant brainstormer and focus group, and to really to bring the power of all these people together. Social physics, the guy who wrote social physics, says that there's much more power in the group, and that groupthink, when it's channeled the right way, is brilliant. You can learn more and more every single day. So why not just take the power of all these people in one place and ask them, what should we do? What are your ideas? Brainstorming is the most incredible thing, but I think you're going to really come out with solution-based things that'll happen, so you feel like you've accomplished something when you go to an event, which I really don't think you do once you leave. You may learn something, and also you have the forgetting curve, which means that 10% of, you learn 10% of whatever you heard at an event. But if somebody's at the other end is pulling the issues together and creating something that's usable, like this song that these guys created was unbelievably brilliant because of the people, they had musicians and things like that helping to curate it.
I absolutely love this conversation. I think this is one of my favorite sessions ever at a virtual shake-up. I've got so many questions. If you've got a question in the audience, please put it into the Q&A. You'll see it next to the polls on Slido on the Stream tab. I'm just going to bring up the result of the poll that we had earlier. I was about to say evenly split. It started off with people saying that they weren't really evaluating Clubhouse as a possible means to deliver value to attendees and sponsors, but it looks like either you've convinced people about Clubhouse or all of the Clubhouse fans are in the house.
Okay, so you know what I'm doing with Clubhouse? And this is a secret. I'm not gonna, for BizBash, we are going to create all of our rehearsals for sessions in Clubhouse so that we get other input from other people. So it'll be a rehearsal workshop sessions. Because nothing people say in those are that proprietary, but it's a great way of getting feedback and to actually bring in more views, and then you throw a sponsor into the discussion and they think they're getting a lot of value too. So using that as a rehearsal behind the scenes thing, because everyone wants to break the fourth wall, and now in virtual you want to break the fifth wall, which is matching the live audience with the virtual audience. And there's one company, GES. I did a podcast on my Gather Geeks podcast. They talk about how you're going to walk into a hall, and there'll be hundreds of iPads on the room on the wall, and you pick one up and you get to meet a buddy, and you travel around with them to the trade show or whatever. That's just very probably one that will never actually happen, but the thinking of that is so interesting.
Well, I wanted to take you back to the start. I'm going to be a little bit cheeky here because I've been onto the Washington dossier, and I'm having a look at December 1977. And the headline is Sally Quinn, is everybody afraid of her? Actually, so I'm thinking, we've got a powerful woman here. And also, if anybody's not been on this site, it's fantastic. You can just flick through. Here's some advertising, kind of Mad Men style. So apparently this guy knows how to treat his woman, and that's why she got the present that she wanted. So some things have not aged very well, but other things, I imagine that you've learned a lot over the years. What do you kind of look back and think, specifically towards events? What do you look back and think, I wish I'd have known that at the start?
Well, I wish I, like everyone else, I didn't take events as seriously as they should be taken. Events are the number one strategic weapon in almost anything, in being a great CEO. The greatest CEOs are event organizers. They know how to manage people. They're collaboration artists, number one. Politicians, I found, their number one skill set is event organizing. Now, that may be bad for all of us because they're more interested in knowing how many people come to a campaign rally. And every time I went to an event when I was 21 and 22, I talked to a senator, and it was all about the events. That's what they know. That was what they were fluent in. And so that when I was working at the State Department, I was a voluntold at the State Department because my friend became the chief of protocol. So I helped them with lots of things. And we created these weird partnerships. Like we found out that Secretary Clinton would go all around the world, and that she'd be feted at these great poor countries, and they come back to the State Department, and our food and beverage program was awful. And she realized that that chefs are the ultimate collaboration artists too. So we started something called the American Chef Corps. So we inducted 100 chefs to be ambassadors, and they would then be the people that cooked at our events, and all the toasts were about the chef between the heads of state, because it was a common denominator that brought people together. So it's all this white space stuff that we didn't take advantage of. When you say, what did I wish I knew? I wish I took that more seriously.
So both you and Heather have used this phrase white space. And for me in the UK, that didn't translate. I don't know what you mean. So just tell me a bit more about what white space is. Heather,
do you want to go first?
I have to unmute myself. So white space is a concept that, if I look at my regular industry and the things that are known to me, i.e., I can sell tickets or I sell sponsorships, like the typical business model, that's not white space, right? But if I collaborate with somebody maybe outside my industry, and I identify, whoa, I didn't even know about that. I can leverage the ideation that happened outside my four walls to bring in new value, new innovation. So we use it a lot here. But David, did I answer correctly?
I think it's also the stuff that it's activating the hallways properly, to giving people enough time. Sometimes what people do is overprogram. What we have to do is realize that things will happen on its own. I mean, the beauty of what Clubhouse does, it just stimulates other thinking. And so the conversation, you just sort of let it happen. The other thing is, like at the State Department, for example, we would, if there's a head of state coming in, we would move the antiques around to make sure that the conversations were about what was in the room. When we did the menu, we made sure that it was consciously done about foods from certain things that meant cultural things. Like when you have an event and the chef brings in the favorite food of the head of state, their eyes light up. We did a state dinner that I helped work on in terms of the people. They decided that the president of Mexico's hometown had lots of butterflies. So they decided to use the butterflies of his hometown as these conversation starters. That's what I think, that whenever people say, oh, decor and all that, decor is critical, but it's not to be pretty. It's to create these ways that people will connect emotionally. And so when you see it, either it's you look up and you're the neuroscience of, oh my God, that is so cool. And I'm going to go to Ralph and say, hey, Ralph, what do you think of that? And I may not have talked to Ralph, but you're making everything sort of a common experience so that it democratizes the room. I do this other trick. I've taken hold of these Jeffersonian style dinner parties, which I have to explain to people that aren't in the US who the hell Jefferson is. In Canada, it was a hard time explaining it, but he was our president and he hosted these dinner parties. And what he did, he curated the 12 people in the room and made everybody participate. And like I do that for my speakers before every event, because usually you see all these great things about speakers and they never meet each other. So I bring them together and they connect. And I start off with really simple questions like, what was your first job and what did you learn by it? So all these sort of big shots are like ice cream scoopers or babysitters or dog walkers. And what they learn from their first job is a through line for their entire life. And it just brings people together. And then you make the conversation a little bolder. And what are we going to do for this group? And then what are we going to do to solve a problem and get to a let's? And then the next morning when they speak, they are so emotionally high that their speeches are 1,000% better.
I love that.
White space. That's white space.
I love that. Yeah, that's really interesting. I love all the, one of the things we learned at events was icebreakers. So I remember my best friend that I ran some very kind of top level events in stately homes in the UK. He brought a magician along. And I was the guy saying, why have we paid, whatever it was, £600 for this magician? Absolutely fantastic. So with all these senior leaders who don't necessarily know how to talk to the person next to them, which fascinates me as well, different personalities, no matter what your job title, you get the magician in there doing a quick trick. Suddenly 3 people are crowding around. I mean, it's probably one that all event organizers know, but for me, I was like,
people love it.
Yeah, absolutely great.
Do you know what they started doing as a thing called Summit Series, and there's a thing G8 Summit, the G8 Summit with all the presidents. I think in Australia they gave all the leaders kangaroos to pet in front of everybody, and I mean, you think that we're all human beings. I mean, it's sort of like you need to connect the room, and so that stuff works. I mean, at events, the Summit Series events, which I thought were brilliant too, they put CEOs in like beautiful tents, but they're all living in sleeping bags, and they have great culinary experiences. But it's like going to summer camp. I use summer camp as my model for like the perfect event organizers, because they deliver this experience that you think about the rest of your life, and the people that you met, the bonding of it happens, and it all happens because of these shared intimacy moments that you connect with somebody and you never know. And also, I've also found that when talking to some of my millennial friends years ago, and they say, "Why?" I ask, "Why do you go to events?" Well, I am able to scale relationships at events. I go because I can speak to 100 people instead of one. This is the smartest guy in the room, knowing that why should I just send tons of letters when I go to one event and meet 100 people, and you just never know. And I think that it's you got to think of the journey of the attendee too, and we're thinking so much of the journey of the organizer. The other thing that I'm railing against is how CEOs suck at hosting events, that they think it's about them. And it's not. To activate a room, you have to be the collaboration artist CEO, not the egotistical CEO. And so it has to flip in order for people to do it. And you, over and over again, you see the CEOs that are gracious and wonderful hosts are usually have higher share prices.
Wow, that's interesting. Well, for those of you who are still watching the stream, because I know that Brella, actually on the schedule, it says networking session right now. So you've got to imagine we're in the hallway at one of David's events, and we're carrying on the conversation. But there have been some audience questions. So let me go through these. So the top rated question is, what is the best event you've attended in 2020 or 2021? I think based on entertainment and engagement value.
Well, I think every event that I attend in 2020 and 21 is based on nostalgia of what it was. I've been going to what I do is I forget the virtual events sometimes. And I think the ones that I've loved the most have been the ones where we get into conversations like this, and they break you up into smaller groups, no matter what it is. Before that, my favorite events were like Montreal, the one in Montreal. I forgot what's the name of the one in Montreal. I just completely forgot it. It's C2 Montreal, which they were totally innovative in the way they were doing things, and they were trying to scale intimacy in ways that you could never imagine. And I think that they're doing good, and they sort of led the way for a lot of other people. I think we're in this innovation phase right now. So even remember the first days of going to Zoom, it's like, oh my God, I can see the person in the back room. I can see the person on the screen. We're so enamored. We were so enamored, and then we're so quickly moved away from it that we want more and more and more. And I do believe that what we're missing, and I think Brella and places like that are doing it, is how do you digitize interaction in the breakout rooms to help event organizers become better collaboration artists. There's a guy named Adrian Sager who wrote the book, The Unconference. And he has all these techniques that we can digitize and allow for those icebreakers to really work. Because right now, if it's flat, the one things I don't like are the ones that you don't get to see the other people necessarily at any point. That it just, here's the presentation, you got it, you can clean your desk, you're not paying attention, you're doing your email at the same time. You need to have ones that do it. And what I love about Clubhouse is that you forget the other things that you have. And you forget your email and you forget everything else, because the conversations, you can just leave if you don't like it. But if you want to be in it, you're really in it. And that's what these things are about. It's like those little That's what events are. It's a serendipity rubbing of elbows with people that you never thought you'd rub elbows with. But what the event organizer is doing is creating the platform so you can rub elbows with the people that are appropriate to rub elbows with, and let you have fun with the serendipity.
It's amazing how much pleasure you get from these strange connections. You think, oh, I never thought that would happen. And that's what you remember, isn't it? Not the presentation you were expecting. I'm going to go back to the audience questions. So another one about Clubhouse. So if you're using Clubhouse as a rehearsal platform, how will you prevent your event attendees from going to your rehearsals? Or is that even a problem?
I think it's FOMO. It's basically you're creating FOMO because you want to see more. If you like it, you want to see more. And everybody says, oh, don't do a virtual event because no one's going to go to your real event. We have proven that that is not right. I mean, people just want to know that these are smart people talking, and I have to get in on this, this deal. And I don't think, whoever you lose, you're going to gain 50.
Yeah, we were talking about Clubhouse yesterday with Heather, and I was saying one of my first experiences of Clubhouse was tuning into Kim.com, talking to MC Hammer. And I just found the whole thing fascinating, bizarre, but also the fact that you can dip in and out. You can be there for 10 minutes and then leave it, come back.
It's conversations on demand, which is what we don't have necessarily in the event space. Now, Clubhouse may fade. Clubhouse may be, it could be like a one-horse pony type of thing, but the concept, I think, is going to stay with us. The idea that rich conversations aren't going anywhere.
Yeah. Well, let's move to Kieran's question. So what is the best way to bring results of a hybrid online event as a tangible product to build and add to the knowledge pool? What do you think of that?
My feeling is what I've noticed with my conversation about Daybreakers is that the organizer has to make them more valuable. And by creating sort of solution-based things that either training is one thing, and there's different reasons for a million different events. But for an event that you want to know that, there's something about this incredible song that they created with thousands of people in the room because it was a group think. It was interesting, as opposed to, oh, I just went to this dance thing and I'll forget about it tomorrow, but it was fun because I got my energy going. So I don't know, how do you transform? We're in the age of, we talk about the experiential world. It now is moving more towards the transformational world when you spend time, because we realize that it's important when people gather to do something that's important and that they're not going to forget. I don't know if that answers the question, but that's my take. Heather, what do you think?
You're on mute, Heather, I think. I had to get that in this conference at one point. You're on mute.
But someone's putting me on mute. I guess because when I write, it's too loud on my table. But no, I agree with what you said, David. And I think that, I 100% agree with you that having a virtual component is not going to take away from the live. They are different, and people like different experiences. I also thought your point about the earlier question about what the most memorable event is, and I do think this is a problem with virtual, is that creating that memorable experience is much more difficult in virtual than it is in live. So anyway, I know we're at time though, Ralph, and I know we were getting such great feedback about this session, by the way, David. So that's why we let it go on. So
no problem. I'm around.
Yeah. So, that was going to be my next question. So you'll be on the event platform, David, if people want to connect with you.
I will be on it at least for the next half hour. Then I have to go congratulate. I'm involved with this thing called event.video to help kids in high school in underprivileged areas get into the event industry. And she just won the EIC award, the event council. And so I've got to go help on a toast to her after this. But I'll be here till 1:30.
Fantastic. Well, thank you both so much. Absolutely fascinating. For those of you who are still watching and not in a meeting, you've got 15 minutes to have a networking break or a one-to-one meeting. Please click on the Brella. I'll just show you very quickly. If you're wondering how to connect with people, you can just go to the People tab over here, and you can see some matches that I've got. I could suggest a meeting, really easy, and then it picks a time which is good for both me and the other person. If Miko accepts, and I can't see why he wouldn't, I can have a video call. So that's how you arrange your meetings. But we've got a 15-minute break, and then we're back to talk about influencer marketing with Marissa Pick.